Welcome to the Art Lady channel. Today I want to share with you my very favorite brush by Princeton. And in many of my painting videos you'll hear me say my Princeton or my favorite Princeton brush. And this is actually the favorite brush that I'm sharing with you. And the reason I'm sharing this video, I'm not being compensated for it or paid to endorse this in any way at all. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because as an art teacher, I am always searching for brushes that can withstand my students' use and long-term use. Some brushes that I go to within 1 week, the brush falls apart with daily use from my students. And in my art class, we paint almost every day. We paint for, I figured out 2.5 hours solid of painting every day. So these brushes hold up to that long hours of being in the water. And they also keep their shape really well. I'm showing you right now the brand new brush here. And like I said, a lot of times when I try different brushes out, they last about a week and then they totally fall apart. Or let me show you one brush here. This is a large size brush. They last probably 1 school year. We'll do this to this large brush here. And the hairs are actually just totally worn away. And it is now a triangular shaped brush here. So with constant student use, the brushes just get worn down, and depending on the make and model of them. And what I found is that the Princeton brush will retain, here's another one of this brand. The Princeton brush will retain its shape. You can see how this is being worn after many, many, many years of use and many hours. And I want to tell you how much we paint. We have 180 school days, and about 30 of the days we do not paint in our school day. We have like the beginning of the school year, the first week of school we don't paint, the last week of school we don't paint, and then when I do my clay activities and some other kinds of craft activities, those are the days we don't use our brush. But most of the time we use that brush. And I have some brushes here that are Princeton brushes. Like I said, these are the brand spanking new Princeton brush right here. The cover's never been taken off. I'll take off the cover so you can see how they look. And this is a number 2 Princeton. Like I said, some of the brushes I have here are 8 years old. And let me show you what an 8-year-old Princeton brush looks like after, and it's 3,000 hours of use for student use. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I figured out from my brushes. This is the Princeton brush, same brush, 3,000 hours of being submerged in water and used and pretty much abused by kids. And the shape, it still retains a nice point. It has lost some of its hair and length of hair. The tip is what wears out first, but it's still usable for kids. And it still works really well. And some of the barrel paint, if you look, has come off because these are submerged in water. And we have long, huge buckets from kids. We dip our water in up to here, and so that's probably why a lot of the paint comes off. But they're left wet. They're actually physically used 2.5 hours every day. And 3,000 hours this brush has been used, physically being used, 3,000 hours of kids touching and painting it. And so that, I think, is a lot of use. And to still retain a lot of its shape and be usable, that's why I really love the Princeton brush. I'm amazed at how these held up. Here's another one. And like I said, it depends on, you know, which kid's using it that day and how much of abuse. But here's another one, and all of the chipping, the paint has come off on the side. I should probably repaint these because they're still real good. And kindergartners have used them. First graders have used these brushes all the way up to 5th grade. Here's one that is, now these are 8, like I said, these are 8 years old, the ones I'm showing you now. Now here's a brush that's been used 2 full school years right here. So 2 years of student use, and this is what they look like. And this is why I love them. Normally 1 year of use is going to give me, where's these brushes? These are of course bigger brushes, but 1 year of use is going to just, these are just useless right here now, from another brand company. But 1 year of, 1 to 2 years of use here. Last year I started replacing some of mine that were 8 years old. Now, these are pricey brushes, especially for a public school system. But I buy a few of them a year. I get PTA to buy them. And then I always wait for them to go on sale. And the brushes, the reason I know these are 8 years old is because our district used to carry these brushes. And they were very inexpensive for me to buy. They were several dollars each. And so when I first came to this school, I splurged on all the Princeton brushes through our county surplus order. And we were able to get them not very expensive. Now they're about, I can get them, it's almost triple the price of what I paid in the original. But they're way worth it. And these are the number 2 series. It's the Summit 6100. And that's the one that I love to use with my kids because they're durable. And if I buy them once, they're going to last for years. And in 2 years, this brush, I think I figured out it was being used 750 hours. It's 375 hours a year these brushes are used continuously by kids in a school year. And I have 750 kids, a little under 750, depends on the week and day, but pretty much 750 kids that are at our school at one time using these in a week. And so these brushes really, really get used. And that's why I love the Princeton brush. Let me show you some that are, I use the number 2 size. This is the size we love for fine detail work. My little kindergartners can get little tiny lines and little tiny patterns with their brushes with these. It's amazing. Now the paint we use is tempera paint and watercolor paint. I do not use acrylic paint with my kids. That really ruins the brushes because the kids are not washing the brushes good enough, and when I use acrylic paints, I have to go back over and wash them with the kids. That does a lot of damage to the brushes. So the paints we are using are tempera paints, little watercolor pans like this, liquid tempera, and tempera cakes. Those are the paints we're using on our brushes. And you can see some of that tempera stains the brush. This is that magenta and fluorescent paints stain them. This is a size, the size number 2 I love. This is my go-to for tiny areas. When we paint large areas of color, I think the name has worn off on these. Let me go see if I have a new one. The larger areas are the flat brushes we use. These are 2 flat brushes. And like I said, these are several years old here and have that 750 hours a year use as well. Let's see if I can find to tell you the size of that brush in Princeton. If I have any new ones, I might not have any. I'll just go by this one. This is this is a size 12, but it's not in that brand. I'll write it in the comments down below in my detail of what size this one is that we use. This is a flat brush, and it is about I want to say it's a little under a 1/2 inch wide flat brush that we use. And so this is the main brush that kids would use if they fill in big areas of color. And then these are for fine detail work here. And I totally recommend these brushes. So, and I made this video so that teachers who are looking for a brush that is going to withstand student use over the years. And of course I teach how to take care of your brushes, how to hold the brushes. I have videos on that as well for students. but these brushes are going to withstand use and abuse. You can see this one. This week we're using tempera cakes. And now when you use tempera cakes, the dried form of tempera, that puts a toll on your brushes as well. And this one was really scrubbed this week. We got some fray hairs coming out here. But like I said, these brushes are really very, very, very old here. And they've been submerged in water daily. So I hope that you've learned a little bit about the Princeton brush. And for this art teacher who's been teaching for 30 years, it's way worth it in the beginning to spend some money on a brush, because you're not going to be wasting money on brushes that you just throw away. And it's so sad to see a brush last 1 week, as some of my brushes. I'll show you brushes. These brushes last about a week in my classroom, and then they totally die. These brushes here, these are just the standard brush standards, and they just get destroyed within a week. The hairs, brand new, the hairs just fall right out. You can see here, there's a hair that just comes right out of this, and the hairs are all gone by a week from kids using them. If I use them a week straight. Because like I said, in my room we are 2.5 hours a day. My classes are 40 minutes long, and the kids actually physically paint for 25 minutes during that 40 minutes because we have cleanup and we have instruction. So it's a 25-minute solid painting, and then when you paint all day long, 6 classes a day, it ends up being 2.5 hours of continuous painting with the kids in there. So there's my little tidbit on the Princeton brush and why I love these brushes. And I'm actually amazed that I still have some that are 8 years old here. But that brush holds up. This is the test of time, and this is the elementary school test of time on brushes. And you can see they're still usable after 8 years. That's why I love the Princeton brush.